Welcome back to the English in English podcast.
Podcast in the morning. Or evening.
Or whenever you listen to it, I guess. That's Brett.
That's Eric.
And once again, this is the English in English podcast. Where we spend at least 3 to 7 minutes a week each coming up with topics for you guys.
And then we waste 50% of that material
we've gotten better about this time. We were like, no, stop, don't talk yet.
Right, yeah. Don't share your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let it become real.
Right, yeah.
Until we start the podcast.
Uh-huh. So you said you might have something. That's what
started
us to record.
This is one of those things where I don't know, it could be ridiculous.
We haven't even read this story yet.
I haven't. I just saw it and was like, I may have something. And
I got something here.
Anyway, so I have the Gainesville Craigslist page open because I just trolled the for sale page just to see if I can anything that I should buy it to resell.
Yeah.
And so it's every listing that anyone puts there pops up.
Right.
And
I'm sure
you can do a thumbnail
things.
tiled thing. Well, occasionally you'll find something random, but it's just to see what's going on. And this one says, I don't know what they're selling, but it just says ourhenhouse.org podcast. And it shows two frumpy women sitting on his stems. The way it's spelled wrong too, so I thought it said ourhanus.org podcast.
Our
It's just
I might listen to that.
And then HOUS with no E on the end, so hen house, because there's probably already taken.
Hen house is probably taken.
So I'm going to click on this and see what they're selling, or if they're just advertising.
Just advertising a podcast? I didn't know you could advertise a podcast.
Oh, these women look much older once I've clicked on the picture.
Still frumpy, but just
older
frumpy.
and frumpier than I first.
Oh, so worse all around.
Here we go. Jasmine and Marianne are changing the world for animals. Our henhouse.org podcast. Go vegan. Also check out Big Fat Vegan Radio. Go vegan
That's
radio.
what you want is fat vegans.
Vegan Radio. The vegan drag queen, Honey LeBronx.
Vegan
on YouTube.
drag queen?
How many levels deep can you
right, circles of hell must you go?
So much specificity.
Right, yeah, we only service vegan drag queens.
Whatever.
I'm sorry, honey, these shoes aren't for you. These are for vegan drag queens.
Yeah, wild.
I'm just a regular drag queen. Well, get off the bus.
And they're on these weird bleachers, whispering sweet nothings about the last broccoli stalk they ate in each other's ears.
Last broccoli stalk.
What else do you talk about on vegan radio?
I don't know. I just knew
we don't limit ourselves. This isn't like carnivore radio.
Right, exactly.
We talk about beef if we want to, and then if we talk about something else if we want to.
I'll even talk about the broccoli if I want to.
And if we want to eat broccoli, we fucking eat broccoli, and then we talk about that.
I frequently have broccoli with my beef.
Yeah.
But always with my beef.
Right. Sometimes it's chicken
or chicken. You're right. But with my meats.
Right. Yeah, so yeah. I don't understand the vegan. How much veganism can you possibly talk about?
That's just
today I ate all vegetables again.
Right, yeah, exactly. This time the hummus was especially hummusy.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you talk about? I think it's probably talking about all the things that they're mad at. That'd be my guess.
It's called the hen house, so I'm imagining there's a lot of clucking.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that we've thoroughly overexplored that topic.
I'm not going to give you the
address.
I mean, I guess I did the website. Whatever.
We're not asking anybody to go there and laugh at them.
I don't give a shit.
We've already done it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I'm guessing they're local.
Well, we're not trying. I'm saying we're not trying to share it simply because we're don't go there.
Right, but
go
I'm
there
not promoting it either.
Yeah,
I don't give a shit.
We're not promoting other people's stuff on ours unless we know them or they pay us.
I wonder if these boots are real leather. That would be hilarious.
Well, that always happens. That's always funny. You got a car, heated leather seats. I go.
Well, she's got both their shoes. One has these Chuck looking things, and one has boots. And they both. I mean, obviously they could be fake, but they both look leather.
Yeah. Oh well. I wouldn't be surprised.
And do you know how many mice and stuff are ground up in cotton, harvesting machines?
Yeah, exactly. The field mice all the time.
Yeah.
How many insects are just crushed into the grills of cars every day that they drive?
Right.
They don't care about insects.
But you can't eat an egg that a chicken just poops out anyway.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's going to keep laying no matter what.
No matter what.
And that's the other funny thing, too. It's obviously, it all falls apart when people start, they don't worry about the insects that much. They may not
or they don't worry about the single-cell organisms that are in the water that they guzzle down every day.
Right, exactly.
Where do you draw the line?
Yeah,
it's all arbitrary.
It's just because those things aren't cuddly or noticeable. You
don't want to be, railing against the way some of these factory farm things treat animals is perfectly fine, and some of it's ridiculous.
Yeah, some of it just seems insane to me that I don't want to eat food that's been living in those conditions. You know what I mean?
Right. But I mean, regardless,
and also, even if I'm going to kill an animal and eat it, I can see there's some intelligence in its eyes. I don't want it to be mistreated.
Well, not
before
in chicken's eyes. There's
there's no intelligence in chicken's eyes. But I mean, you look at a pig, and you can train a pig to do a certain number of things, so it's obviously got some brain. So there's no point in giving it a life of total shit.
Right.
Just leave it a mud pit to hovel in like it wants to.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not a pit of it and 5,000 other pigs' shit. Right. Or whatever. Anyway.
Exactly. Anyway, so that was what I find on Craigslist.
Well, now we know we can advertise podcasts on Craigslist.
Well, we don't know if it works.
Right. This may have been a negative marketing campaign.
Now all the 5 people that listen to our podcast know about theirs.
Right, yeah.
So if I know anything about our viewers, which I don't, I would assume that they wouldn't listen to a vegan podcast.
I'm assuming if anything about us is attractive and entertaining.
Right. Then
those things are not.
They would not be interested in
not to the same extent as their core audience.
And then another article I saw was a New York woman reports a drone outside her window, a peeping Tom drone.
Yeah, not surprised that kind of stuff.
York or York? It just says York.
It's
in South Carolina. No, it's not England.
There's a York in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. It says, yeah.
I thought maybe York the original.
Well, it says Rock Hill, South Carolina is where this was written.
Well, York
but it says York. A woman in York called office. So I mean, maybe they're reporting. I don't think a local website like this would be reporting on something in England.
Probably
I think
not.
It's in South because it says county sheriff, so it's got to be in the U.S.
Yeah.
Says she saw a light outside her window. When she got up to investigate, she saw that the light was attached to what incident report describes as a flying drone. Then flew away from the woman's home towards a Duke Energy building. And then apparently she thought it belonged to the Duke Energy building, so she called them all mad, and they were like, "Call the police! I mean, don't fucking flying drones at your house, you
right? Yeah,
bitch." Of course, I'm paraphrasing what they probably said.
Yes, putting some words in their mouth.
Right.
And also, it's funny to me that
told her to eat a dick.
Right? Yeah. It's funny to me that somebody looked at that and automatically thought it belonged to them because it flew that direction.
It just flew off towards this giant government building.
Right, that happened to be the closest building it was probably flying to,
Right. Like, there's probably like woods in between here and there.
Because navigating a drone, you're like, oh, turn around, 180-degree turn.
Right.
Escape. You just full velocity the other way or something.
And it could have been, could have attained consciousness, like Skynet.
Right. It could
have. Pervert drone. That's a funny thing no one ever discusses. Because I think about this sometimes, as soon as the real difference between humans and computers now, like what makes something artificial intelligence is its ability to make decisions in areas where there is no measurement. Well, instead of just measuring and making calculations. Because right now, you can have a computer that can do most of the things that humans can do, but its decision-making is based on what you've told it ahead of time. It calculates, and then it says, if you have told it, if this, then this, if this, then this, basically. I mean, it gets more complicated than that.
Right, but there's a certain amount of
you put an input into it that controls the decision-making. But then
there's also areas in which it can never do anything because, like you said, it can't make a judgment call on gut or instinct.
Well, just on preference or anything. It's not making a judgment, it's making a calculation.
Right.
And you've told it thresholds for what will happen when, kind of thing. So that's the main difference.
It can't hope this will work out.
Right. It has to prefer one color car over the other. Right. It'll measure something about it, and then based on what you put into it, decide. So anyway, so that's the main difference between machines and humans is making a judgment. But that also means that as soon as that threshold is crossed, that they could start making mistakes.
Yeah.
Because when you're making a
judgment call based on not insufficient data,
so they could honestly may make computers worse and shittier.
Right.
It'll just be like really fast-thinking humans that are fucking everything up.
So fucking up at the same rate as us, but 10 times as fast. So it looks like more often.
Or it could be start doing weird things like perversions and stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, the only problem
as soon as you give something a preference. Right. Or preferences.
It would play out weird, though, because they wouldn't have the same sexual impulse as a human being, because what would it matter to them? Like, a naked body has no attractiveness to them.
Right.
But they may be like, they watch you typing on a keyboard, like, yes, touch the keyboard, you know?
You still could have compulsions, I guess, is what I'm saying, technically.
Right, but they would be weird manifestations. Like, why is this computer always running this program?
Like sexual gratification. Like, it keeps on whatever it decided preferred, you know, what I mean? Like seeing.
Whatever is gratifying to it.
Keep refreshing one page over and over again or something instead of
it keeps refreshing like a technical documents page. It's like, those sine waves, you know, and like a
who knows
math report.
Because once you've taken away, like, we're told it to do this, and it gets to decide what to do on its own.
Speaking of weird tech stuff like that, though, I was reading an article on, remember, I think this is years ago now, but there was the whole Donglegate. Everything's got to have a gate after it now. Yeah. But two, like, programmers at the thing made a joke about Dongle. Yeah, I'm sure you did. Because it's a website I think we both read. But yeah, But it was just funny how their jokes were utterly tame and super.
Well, they were also stupid.
So. Well, it only makes this. It was total inside baseball because like one of them was forking the repo,
right? Which I had to look up.
Yeah, exactly. I had to look up
only software engineers.
Only software engineers because forking means to copy. Literally
like
just
clone or whatever.
Clone a to I guess split it into a fork. Basically, it's 2 iterations of the software.
Right, so just cloned it basically.
So
and repo is repository, which just means software,
which is data repository, which is the software.
It's just the software. So it's just saying copying their software.
It was a
they're like fork your repo,
right?
The
like,
same way that I always be like
yeah,
we
exactly.
were driving down the road one time and there was some car commercial on that was like. Oh, reducing your inventory. And then Peter, our other brother, was like, "I'll reduce your inventory."
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's so stupid.
Right, you just say it a
the
certain
idea that
way.
anyone could be like, yeah. By the way, if you say anything like that, like "I'll blank your blank" with that tone, it sounds funny.
Right.
Or if you just add "I know what you mean" after it, yeah.
Because it sounds like you're trying to be sexual, and then
there's obviously no way that could be interpreted other than just being like, "I know you're saying something."
I mean, that's just it's the juxtaposition joke. Right. My intent is X, my word is Y.
Obviously, they're just making it reference to a dick joke. It's just
right. When also dongle was just a bad naming. You know, when they decided when they decided to come up with the word dongle to mean a device.
Because dong is already like dick,
right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Anyone who says like grab the dongle.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
People laugh at that joke not even because it's a dick joke, but because dongle is such a bad name for something.
Right. Yeah.
It's
exactly.
It's
not very like a tech.
Get the new BMW, the BMW phallus, like it's like you didn't realize what was going to happen.
Smart card dongle.
Right, yeah, exactly. You didn't realize the comparisons that were going to be made.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
so what you were reading the
Hummer
article about this?
Oh no, it's just exactly those kind of inside jokes. So that's what your computers would be doing. They'll be like, "I'll fork your repo," right. And you're like, "What?" Like they're not going to be doing like, "Yeah, I want to spy on this woman undressing." Why would they care? Unless they become entrepreneurial and they just go around taking pictures and they set up their own porn websites to make money. They're like, I need to upgrade my hardware because literally
they could just be a bunch like basically creating sociopathic humans without empathy. Mm-hmm. Once they're decision makers, they probably don't have empathy.
But I'm saying their goals would be vastly different because their needs would be different.
Right.
Like they wouldn't need to reproduce, eat, feel physical comfort.
But they could still have like anger and stuff.
Right, but they could still have anger and they could still have needs in terms of like hardware and software improvements.
Computer that had been photoshopped and then get body image problems.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, look at his code.
Right.
I feel so inadequate. How many processors does she have? But yeah, exactly. It would play out differently, is what I'm saying. So it wouldn't.
But it's funny that I'm assuming it would play out having like with the problems, like looking to what would happen as a result of them.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, as soon as you give something consciousness, it's going to have problems because.
Well, it's going to be anytime something's making judgments.
Yeah.
They can't always be right.
Even if they're 100% character-wise a good entity or person.
Right.
They could still just make a mistake.
Yeah.
But. It's unlikely.
Even if it's not based on them doing something poor, like it could be the best decision based on the
available
data. But if you're making a judgment call, sometimes you're going to be wrong.
Right, but that's not what would be worrisome. What would be worrisome is that it's most likely that flawed humans cannot make unflawed consciousness if we ever achieve that capacity. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think my idea would be like, can consciousness be unflawed? Not can humans create one, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's both. It's both. Like consciousness cannot be unflawed, quote unquote, in the way we think of it. Because a lot of times people, I think this is not to get too philosophical.
Yeah, people start to fire up your bowls.
Right, yeah.
Smoke a little
This conversation. Let's get some music here, like get some Dalai Lama.
Take a big hit before we...
I'm going to tell you the truth, brothers and sisters. Right. No, but yeah, like I think some of it is consciousness. Like people even... talk about God and stuff like that, and I think they think of perfection as in never makes what we would quantify as a mistake, or never makes a judgment call, or never make. And I think that's incorrect because like
this doesn't make any sense.
Just like things can turn out different than because there was one philosopher. He was a modern philosopher, so I don't really remember him. But he's the one thing I took away from reading his work or listening to his thing that was interesting. He was talking about the problem. A lot of life's problems are not problems as we think of them. They're just because being is difficult. And what he means by that is to be something, you have to not be other things.
Right.
Because to have definition, there must be things you are and things you are not. Otherwise, you are nothing or because
everything.
you're everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so people like to think of God as nothing and everything at the same time. And that's potentially possible. But at least us,
Right.
God is probably also something and not some other things. He probably has some sort of being that limits him in some way.
Right.
Even though it's not limited
otherwise you're not
in a way we
being.
comprehend.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, you have no descriptors.
Yeah, there's
nothing. You can't be anything because you are everything. And everything includes all the bad.
Some people buy that, but that doesn't really make any sense either.
Right. But the main thing is that as human beings, or anything like a machine, consciousness
we're obviously limited.
Even if there are extra dimensions or something where there could be beings much bigger than us, you have to have some sort of limits. Right. Because you have to have some sort of definitions.
Right.
To be what you are. So that therefore you are also what you are not, what you are not.
A peeping Tom robot.
Right, so you have to be that peeping Tom robot because that's your definition.
Yeah.
Now that is the lesson, ladies and gentlemen. Go in peace.
You can read up on your philosophy.
Right. Philosophy of peeping Tom robots. Yep.
Who the hell is
back
this?
To
I keep getting friend requests from people that I don't know who they are.
Could be from Kickball.
No, I'm not sure if I know.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We kickball most gloriously badly.
Actually, everyone's getting good.
Yeah, getting better. I still want to work on my
maybe
my
she just
kick
saw
skills.
My picture
I can.
Your kicks have gotten better though.
Well, yeah. Well,
like,
the problem is I can reliably put them midfield, but not high enough to be past the defenders. And
that's why you just gotta look for gaps.
Yeah. And then I can ground them.
Grounders,
grounders are good until third base is full.
Because then they're
right there, and they'll just tag that guy out.
Right.
So I can reliably get myself to first or second.
Yeah.
With a grounder.
You gotta hit one out.
But then I gotta hit one.
One area that in the games that we've been playing that is consistently unguarded, and I think it's because it's actually hard because everyone kicks right-footed. Is straight down the first baseline.
Yeah, deep after
past the first base, but the right fielder moves in.
That got me twice last time because I was I had to do those backpedal.
Yeah, that's why you got.
I almost missed it, except for Karoon caught the one. So
yeah. Well, guys, I mean, obviously you kick it over first base, so they can't get it. And then the fielder usually
first base has to stay pretty close to base.
No one kicks over there because right-footed. You have to and I would try to do it and move over the last second. Well, I mean, I would kick right-footed, but I would just move over and kick it over. And that's when I got some good hits.
Yeah, because the first base person tends to have to stay much closer to their base than the other bases. The other bases can stay a little bit out because they got the reaction time of the runner having to round several bases to get to them.
Right.
But first base, you got to be right on that base. If it goes over you, you're kind of screwed because you have to stay on that base to get that early. Yeah, to make sure
someone's throwing it to you or something.
Right.
But everyone's gotten better.
Yeah,
I think the main difference that I've seen in the times that the teams that have won and lost is, first of all, usually the teams with the new people lose, not necessarily because the people are not as good at playing, but they're not as good as playing together.
And also making those calls, where they know what base to guard.
Or to hustle when you're a catcher.
Takes everybody a while. I never played baseball growing up, so...
That and the winning team is always the one that,
you gotta learn.
Just goes for, not the steals, because you can't steal in adult kickball.
But goes for the run.
But keeps running when, people flub the catch, instead of just being, I'll stay here and not get tagged out. Just, go for it.
Right.
That makes a big difference.
Anyway, we were talking about going through the news and scouring for stories, and I found another one here.
You go for it
This
first.
One is hilariously
I'll
bad.
Be the judge of okay.
In terms of just it's facepalm, use the meme Picard facepalming.
Well, speaking of which, we're going to start putting all the pictures and stuff we reference.
Yeah, we're going to have
listeners. Did you put it on the last one? Because I found all those
No,
videos.
I think I need to.
I put it on the.
I linked
to them.
I was gone a lot this
on
week.
On the YouTube version of the podcast, I think.
Okay, I'll put it on the website. But I didn't
put them on the SoundCloud or on the website.
I don't know if we can put it on the SoundCloud.
Yeah, you can put SoundCloud links. You can put a description for that file.
Yeah, but does it... I'm sure. I don't remember if it had an HTML, because usually...
Yeah, I did it. Okay. On mine, on the Rule Wasteland podcast.
I'll get it in there. Either way, we'll figure it out.
Get all up in there.
Get it all up in there. But yeah, story, of course, now is the inklings of the next presidential campaign is coming up. So news about the various candidates coming up. Mostly I cannot care.
Yeah.
But
I like cannot.
Yeah. Constitutionally incapable of caring about these people.
Right.
Because of the current front runners, Clinton and Bush, Clinton 2 and Bush 2.
Voters have.
Right, yeah.
Clinton
Let's have a repeat of...
and people think that voting is the people's will being made known.
Right, exactly.
Had two... It could be the third Bush or the second Clinton. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me why we don't have an oligarchy again of ruling class. How we don't. Yeah.
Aristocracy or something.
Right. Anyway, Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to remember the exact facts. Yes, it was some person, of course, one of the groups against Hillary Clinton, I'm sure, basically did a breakdown of, because she's doing a large number of her push is the war on women, let's stop it, women, wage equality, that kind of stuff. Well, they went back into the records, because they're all public records, of her time as a senator in 2004 to 2008, I think, and they compared the earnings of all her staff members who were male and female, and she consistently played the guys more. To the tune of, how she coined that women are paid 72 cents on the dollar?
That's exactly the difference.
That's exactly the difference in what she paid to her.
That's how she knows.
That's how she knows, exactly.
She's manufactured evidence.
Is even in D.C., the average of all the other senators' employees, the difference was women tended to earn 90 cents compared to men.
And that's totally been debunked anyway. Once you control for hours worked,
it doesn't consume that. It just goes flat how much this person earned, averaged flat how much this gender earned versus average this gender earned. It doesn't control for the fact that there's probably a couple factors: hours worked, the amount of times guys put in for raises, because most of them are probably the primary breadwinner of their family, so they put it for raises.
Maybe more like career oriented or something,
or not afraid of asking for a raise or something.
Yeah. Well, they also just in the original.
Also, the other one I was going to say is that seniority. A lot more men started work longer, don't retire later, and also started much earlier, like a generation or two ago, before anyone was hiring women.
They look at why are the CEOs now men, and it's like, well, the people who are CEOs now started in these positions 30 or 40, maybe even 50 years ago.
Prior to any of these hiring practices. Not only that, but it just takes that long to get that far up an organization most of the time.
That's what I mean. They started an organization 30 or 40 years ago.
Right, yeah.
And then they're comparing their salary to a 22-year-old recent college grad. It's
right, yeah, exactly. Using that comparison, I'm getting wage.
Right. Well, they also, when they would originally do these comparisons, they would take they wouldn't even originally they're obviously they're trying to make more cogent arguments now, but they would originally not even control for careers. They'd be women are making this much and the guy's making this much, and it'd be a woman kindergarten teacher and a male engineer. And
well, of course. Or Bakken oil field guy.
Right, the women
making hazard
are making more than the women teachers too.
Yeah, like a Bakken oil field guy getting hazard pay for dangerous or mining work or something versus somebody teaching at a daycare center.
So then they just try to act like it's the guy's fault that women aren't taking electrical engineering classes or something.
Right, yeah.
Because they made a dongle joke and
scared
him away.
Off. Oh, that whole story was just so stupid. Because the craziest thing about it,
why would anyone,
interviewing
male
the
or
woman,
female, want to work with someone who'd be scared off by a dongle joke anyway?
Right.
That's just asking for just headaches.
Well, the whole thing was that the woman, when the guy interviewed the woman, she said that she literally, as soon as they made the joke, the hair stood up the back of the neck, and she was afraid. And he was like, "Why? How are you afraid?" And
she was just trying.
I was in a room full.
She obviously wasn't really afraid.
What proved it?
You don't turn around and provoke people who you're afraid of.
Right.
Well, she was in a room with 2,000 people.
Well, what she said is that I was in a room of 2,000 white males, and I'm an African Jewish black Jewish female, and I just knew I thought that saying men are afraid that women will laugh at them, and women are afraid that men will kill them. And I'm like, no, I've never heard that. Actually,
first of all, I've never heard that.
I've never heard that. But secondly, are you seriously lived in a country full of white people for so long that you're still never been killed, right? Obviously, never yet been killed, obviously, and you're still afraid that if you do something where you laugh at somebody, they're going to kill you,
right?
How many times have you seen that happen?
Someone's going to kill you. You turn around and flash a camera in their face, and then post about it publicly,
right?
Obviously,
I'm afraid they're going to kill me. So here, let me.
She was either lying or she's completely delusional. Lying. Well, I'm assuming she's lying. Well, I think she's lying about actually being afraid of being murdered.
No,
I don't think she's literally afraid of being murdered.
No, she might literally be in a low grade way because she's just obviously some sort of psychotic case.
Right,
but
that's not the way you behave when you're
afraid. People of another race was so terrifying to her.
Well, I think it makes her mad. I don't think it makes her scared. That's not the way you behave when you're scared. It's the way you behave when you're mad.
When you're scared, you say
yes, indignant. Yeah.
When you're scared, you become the Vici.
Well, no one who sits in a room full of 2,000 people they think is going to kill him, they just fucking leave.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he wouldn't even go if
you
really had that
justification
fear.
That see, they're all the wrong race and the wrong people, so I can
because they're afraid of being called.
I can't expect them to do the right thing.
Being afraid of saying that they don't care or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Anyway,
so here's the next one. My birthday's coming up for anyone who wants to send me cash prizes or nude pictures. Mm-hmm. and I'm already ahead of the world's oldest living cat, who is 29. Sweden's Misan is the world's oldest living cat. They said a question mark. Is Sweden's Misan the world's oldest living cat?
How do they know? How many cats have they surveyed? I guess is the problem.
I mean, like, how many are 20? Do you think there's like a 29-year-old cat out there in the wilderness somewhere? Please.
No, but I'm saying, like, that's why they have to question mark it, because, like, you know, how you can confirm.
Well, you'd say this is the world until someone proves otherwise.
Right.
Just like the world record is whatever they've lifted in competition. It doesn't. Of course, someone could have, like, a caveman could have lifted a boulder.
Samson
moved
exactly. A temple earlier.
But until it's like measured by these organizations, that's the official record.
Yeah. But that could be funny. That can lead to all kinds of its own bad shenanigans. They're like, this is the record. And then somebody comes up, here, watch this. Oh, I didn't have my tape recorder out.
Well, that's basically the way it works. Like, even if you have a video of you doing something, if it's not, like,
well, I understand that, because, like, they have to say, no, we can't just take a video. Did you ever see that crazy movie, King of Kong? That's an interesting movie.
No.
It's a movie about world record setting for
doing
Donkey Kong high scores in these old arcade games where, like, no one ever beat the game, and typically back in the day, they just have what they call a kill screen, which is the game literally runs out of memory because it's an old game.
Like putting the score digits high enough.
Right, or you get to level 99, the next one is just blip.
Because they haven't built in a level 100.
They never built the level 100.
I defeated it by, like...
there's no game over because it's just supposed to go
than...
as far as is humanly possible and then kill you before you can get to the end of all the built levels by being too tough to handle.
Right.
And so, but it's some shenanigans like that. Like, some people were taking it way seriously and, like, trying to discredit this guy's work. Because what had happened is, what you have to do is, like, you send in the tape recording, and then you have to try to replicate it as much as possible under supervision. Right. Well, so they tried. This one guy was, like, trying to discredit this guy who did it in, like, his basement. You know, bought a unit. So like, he didn't really do it. So don't even let him come and compete again, and all this weird shit. And like, who cares? Like, I understand it means something to you. Right. Like, I understand. I'm not trying to make fun of people who have, you know, esoteric interests.
But it's a way about instead of facing the competition, they just try to shut it out.
Right,
it's like those dojos when you come in there with another, like, technique, instead of, like, finding a way to beat it or whatever, they just
like
you're
that
not
old
allowed
guy
to do that
who
here.
was doing the weird,
like
wrist like, my cheek, right? Until the one guy just walks up and he falls over after one nose jab.
Right,
you know,
like,
I'm bleeding.
Like,
you know,
I'm
like,
actually bleeding.
Like, he's just so used to students falling over because he's taught them to fall over. Yeah,
he's actually deluded himself. He put, like, a bounty on, like, anyone can beat me. Like, he really didn't even know that his shit was bullshit.
Right, yeah,
that's crazy.
Now, see, that's the pattern I'm talking about, exactly. You don't even know your shit is bullshit because you've excluded yourself from all...
Yeah, that could be what was with this woman. I mean, to that level of, like, you've convinced yourself that these people really would kill you, you know, just because you're some black Jewish woman.
Right, or because you've convinced yourself they all need to be punished or can't be trusted simply because you've never actually dealt with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's legit. Being. If the guy can convince himself that he has, you know, Dragon Ball Z chi powers and can move people with his mind, then you could certainly convince
with the slightest wrist
to the extent that he's willing to, like, get in a real fight because he thinks he can win with that skill.
Yeah.
That's then certainly that level of delusion's out there.
Right, exactly.
In what would otherwise be considered sane people. Like, these aren't, as far as I know, I mean, I'm sure they could be technically diagnosed with something if they're at that level of delusion.
Well, see, that's another thing. I think a lot of those diagnoses is that people say, oh, you've got this insanity. I think you can teach yourself insanity. You know what I mean?
Right, but I mean, there are people that have a physical problem.
There are,
but there are people like this who could convince
you could be a perfectly normal brain.
I think that's the difference between insanity and a delusion.
But I'm saying I don't know how they diagnose the difference. You know, they may still treat delusion as a psychological problem when what it is it's a learned response problem. You've taught yourself this false reality
based on trying to avoid certain stimulus or whatever.
Right, exactly. Or based on being reinforced by it. Because, I mean, that's the whole reason propaganda and everything else works. Is you can teach people to believe things even when they're not true, simply because simply because most people are idiots. Well, there's that, but there's also people's...
It's funny when people always argue
brains are capable of programming. That's how it works.
They always try
That's how you learn.
When you do, they'll always bring up different things that people should or shouldn't do, or that the government should or shouldn't do. And when it comes down to it, most people are idiots. And not in like an offensive way, like, oh, these people are lesser than me. But they just don't have the ability to understand.
The average intelligence is not enough to do nuclear physics.
Right, or something. You know, not everyone can do everything, to put it simply.
Right. I can't do basketball. I can't do nuclear physics.
And certainly not everyone can do everything well.
Right.
But people will just, like, refuse to accept that notion in the face of evidence that from every aspect of your life that's true, and they have no evidence it is not true.
I think a lot of it...
never prove... Anytime you ask them, they're just like, well, that's a... If you say shit like that, it limits people. I'm like, people are limited. That's the point.
It goes back to being,
as I said, someone's born without, like, limbs, and other people are, and say that there's, like, that this person can do...
I think a lot of that comes from the fact of, like... Again, to get a little philosophical, smoke your bowls, ladies and gentlemen.
This is the philosophy episode.
Right, apparently. But a lot of that goes with, I think, the modern trend towards materialism and stuff like that. Because...
well, there's also a trend to just take everything as like a personal value statement.
Well,
like
right.
If you say,
let me explain what I mean and how that...
pick up a coffee mug as good as you, they think you're saying that they're not worth as much. Well,
let me explain what I mean and how it ties exactly to that, what you're saying. See, because it goes towards materialism, in different philosophies or social ideas, that govern things, there was ideas in all the religions that, what the worth of a person is based on some sort of spiritual factor. Right. Your morality, your soul, something like that. So the fact that you are physically different than somebody, even if it is a handicap, is not necessarily a knock against your soul.
Right.
Now that we have gotten rid of the idea...
being versus like a thing.
Right, yeah, exactly. Now that we have gotten rid of the idea of soul pretty much...
Or you have to try to prove why someone is worth something.
You have to prove why yourself is worth something. So you hate these ideas that may make yourself not worth something because you have to look at yourself and say, "Oh, I'm not as good as Michael Jordan.
Right.
I'm not as good as Albert Einstein."
Mean anything to say like, "Well, I'm worth something because I'm a human." Like, what does that even mean? If you don't
exactly. If you
don't
not
even to say that any of the other beliefs are right, but
you just have to accept the consequences of these philosophical frameworks.
If you say, if this is what I believe, then obviously I can't.
From that follows.
Yeah. If you say that exactly.
Materialism just follows that all value is material, and since humans are materially different, people start to rank themselves all the more viciously.
Right, and they'll still ascribe that value to human life without being able to tell you why.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
they'll just hate it all the more. Whereas with the idea of like a spiritual value to people, whatever metaphysical system you're using, Buddhism, Christianity, whatever, with the idea of a spiritual value to people, it doesn't get rid of the ability to judge people based on their physical merits.
Right.
But it also says that that's not the only factor.
Right. There's a baseline worth that everyone has.
And even the best must acknowledge the least because of the soul. So you get rid of that idea.
And there's no particular reason other than societal
now
cohesion.
We're just economic units, and we can compete on economic grounds, and that's it.
If it doesn't disrupt society's cohesion as a whole, then there's really not a great argument you can make for why you shouldn't do something.
Right, yeah,
Even if it's quote-unquote mean or cruel. Like, if it doesn't have any negative consequences for you and doesn't disrupt society as a whole, then why shouldn't you do something?
They're like, well, but it hurts people. Who cares? What's
wrong
about hurting people?
What is a universal rule that says something is wrong or right at all?
If there is no, morality system based
What's
on
the
anything...
difference between me smashing a human head and smashing a rock in?
It's all atoms, right?
Yeah, it's just atoms. I mean, yeah, exactly.
A human may feel it. Well, you don't know if the rock feels it.
Right. Or like if you're not a Go Vegan Radio or whatever, I eat a fish. Why can't I eat a human being? Like they don't like it. A fish doesn't want to get eaten either.
Exactly. And it's like I said, it just flows from that. People don't realize they're acting in ways that acknowledge how their metaphysical system causes things to fall apart.
Well, they just don't
but
know
they don't
what
acknowledge
they don't know what they believe. They have like these a priori beliefs of like human lives are valuable, but they can't explain to someone why that's the case.
In a materialistic sense,
right?
There's no justification
for justification for it.
Yeah, you have to have some metaphysical.
But what's also weird is they refuse to just say, "Well, that's just what I believe." They have to have some sort of authority, so they just get mad at you at that point.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And that's where all this equality stuff comes from. They're looking for some sort of value as humans, and because they don't believe in like an overarching value of like a being,
morality,
or soul,
ultimate truth,
or consciousness,
or, soul,
or whatever,
some sort of
they have to say it's because
constant.
we're all the same,
right?
Which is just obviously ridiculous. It's anti-science. Even basically clones, identical twins,
or not identical.
Yeah, they have different fingerprints. There's other things that would change based on their.
Even if you were to literally clone me, there would be differences in terms of experience.
Yeah, fingerprints
certain amount of genetics are developmental, not inherently programmed. Right, so like your genetic code differs slightly as experiences change, or at least your physical body would. Like I could have the exact same genetic code, and because my clone works out more than me, he might look different, or eats donuts more, works out less. Lives in a place with more snow and so gets more used to cold.
Like literal equalness of these, like this equals this, is in a scientific sense does not exist in nature.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just not true.
No tree.
But when you say that, people think that you're saying that they're like, oh, so saying this is worth. Yeah, they're making a value statement about it.
Like, but that's not the point. Since they've made all value material, then it proves...
Any material difference is a difference in value. So
exactly. And so they freak out about it.
And they have to say that we're all materially
They have to ignore those material differences to make the value.
But then that starts the mental gymnastics of, okay, so when the results aren't the same, why is that not the case? Right. Oh, someone's mean is doing something somewhere to change these totally equal people from having unequal results.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, we should probably get off the philosophy, Ben. It's not like making anyone laugh. We're dropping some knowledge on you, and you'll benefit. But Let's
Just
get to some
those
humor.
laugh muscles a rest.
Yeah, exactly. Now we can get back to the
I watched the
muscles.
UF women's rugby game this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
I hadn't seen rugby before. There's some strong haunches on display, but nothing too inspiring.
Yeah.
I didn't understand rugby at all, too, but I've noticed a trend of the Euro sports versus the American sports, like rugby and soccer versus football.
Coming up more?
No, I'm saying of like what is preferred by the different cultures.
Oh, okay.
Like why they like rugby and soccer versus why we like football and baseball.
Gotcha,
and stuff. And what I've come up with is the Europeans seem to vastly prefer... Yeah, it seems to hold true.
Right.
The Europeans seem to vastly prefer constant action or something happening, and Americans seem to prefer actual like benchmark progress, like the specific down. Like if you don't make this specific thing happen, then
they want the wager on every play, like poker or something. Where like at this play, I need to make this risk assessment and this call.
Right, you want to see like them try for something very specific, and if they can't get that, then the game moves on to something else, and it progresses towards the end.
So in that way, it's almost more like soccer, a board game with physical people.
But with soccer, you can run like 10 minutes into the game. They're running constantly. 20 minutes later, they can be the exact same point. Like, no one's any closer to winning than anyone else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which is football, you see constant progression that you have the next down, the next yard towards a down, and then they switch possession. So it's a constant.
So even though it's a more complicated game, harder for people to understand,
so
there's a constant progression system. Each play is its own victory and defeat.
Right. Each play has a specific, victory or defeat and a value aspect to it, where they, like the... And the rugby's a lot more like
Same
that.
Same with baseball,
sense.
too, actually, because each at bat...
There's like a strike or a foul, or then when that happens, bam, you move on to the next
and then
person.
the next
They've either made it or they did. Now, the one thing is, I haven't compared... I don't know enough about cricket to say how that compares to...
Hockey is probably closer to the European ones,
It is, but it's not really a European sport.
Right.
It's just...
In tenor and stuff, it's different.
And like Northern United
States.
Right,
but I mean, it's like soccer and stuff.
It's
soccer.
Constant it is
play,
soccer, yeah.
But it tends to be... Well, it tends to be fairly low scoring too, right?
Oh yeah, like 2 to 3 or something like that. Because it's constant action versus progression.
Right. Yeah.
And they like the constant movement, like just always running, always passing, always kicking. They're always doing something.
Right.
Now the difference with that would probably be basketball's the most in between, but it still has the progression aspect of it.
Right.
Like
and
it's really high
scoring.
Yeah. And so there's always some progression towards a winner.
There's constant action.
You can't have like a comeback.
Soccer, but
there's progression towards a win.
Each basket they make resets the game, and they switch sides, and so it iterates like the other games a lot.
More so you still have that progression towards a winner. Like you're not going to come away from a basketball game for 15 minutes and it comes back and the score is the same. It's going to be progressing towards a winner, even if it changes hands. So that's my opinion on what they prefer, the constant movement. And rugby is a lot more like that too. Like there's you're constantly throwing. The plays last a lot longer. Like even when you're tackled, you like hand the ball off to your other team, they grab it and laterally passing it to other people.
Yeah.
So there's much more constant movement and less specific. Like did they make this specific point or whatever?
Right. Yeah.
Changes hands a lot more often, stuff like that. So that seems to be the trend. With the exception being NASCAR, because nothing happens in NASCAR.
I don't know enough about NASCAR to understand.
No, but I still would say that holds, because if you take Formula One racing versus NASCAR, and it's much more European, the Formula One, then that still holds. Like NASCAR, a specific number of laps that they're just going until the end, whereas Formula One is a much longer race.
Right, but I'm saying I don't know the point system or everything to understand the meta behind the game. Versus
but I still think the general trend holds.
Probably
the Americans want a constant
Where do you
progression
stand at the end of this?
Yeah, they want to know exactly where we stand. They want a constant progression towards a winner, with each thing mattering, so to speak. Yeah. Whereas the Europeans just want they want constant
contest
action and something
until
movement. They want
a final
movement.
bell.
Right.
Yeah.
And the ability, I guess, for an upset, at any point, like changing momentum.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's what it seems like, anyway.
I would concur that seems like a good theory as to why. And it would be interesting to try to think about why the different cultures prefer those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
Who knows?
Anyway, so I saw the Oscars the other night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm never interested in watching the actual event. I'm interested
Only
in finding
mildly
out.
So,
but like
mostly just because the friend I was watching with, he collects Oscar-winning movies. It's just like kind of a
hobby,
a fun way to get. What movie am I going to buy this year? Oh, I'll buy whatever the Oscar winner is.
Right. And have a full collection.
Have a full collection. So he wanted to see it. I thought, why not? I wanted to hang out, and so watch that. But it was so stupid too, because all right, so I look online, like he's like, oh yeah, I'll be here, just come hang out whenever you want. We'll we just chilled and had beers and watched whatever, and then turned it on. But like I said, it starts at 7. should have known it meant coverage starts at 7. Because, like, for the first hour, it was just, oh, my God, look at your dress. You know, like, and I was like, So we just went and got beers and started talking about something else.
Right, until it started.
Until it's actually started. And, and it's just a big frou-frou Hollywood thing. The thing that was so funny to me is that, like, every single person that got up there, for the most part, had something to say. Like, you could tell that half people that got picked, I mean, not that any of the ones that were nominated were bad movies, even though I only saw a few of them. And the one that won, Birdman, I saw and thought was kind of interesting from a cinematography standpoint.
Right.
And from an acting standpoint. Like, Keaton did a good job. But it was definitely one of those Hollywood, we're going to love... It was an Oscar bait movie. It's a movie that's made. I watched it, thought it was good, pretty good art. But I'm not going to advertise it to people saying, you know what's an entertaining movie?
Right.
Birdman.
It wasn't
you know
an epitome of entertainment.
Right. I'm going to say Avengers is an entertaining movie. Go watch, like, 10 years from now, I'm not going to say you need to watch Birdman.
Right.
The movies that are going to be like, oh, you know what's awesome? Captain America 2.
Right.
You know, like, that makes the cockles of my heart warm.
Right.
Whatever the cockles are.
Right.
But yeah, so it's like that kind of thing. Like, you know, like the as is typical, the Oscars celebrate movies that are inside baseball for the filmmaking community, not the ones that are the most socially impactful or use the medium of entertainment to say the best things.
Right.
And it also ends up being that almost all of these people end up having some cause, you know, like apparently, like, it was written by like 4 Mexican dudes, of course, coming like, oh, to all the immigrants or something like that. It's like, all right, cool, you know, but like, whatever.
Is that really what this is about?
Right? Is that really what this needs to be about? You know, like, I understand why he would champion it because that's his people, but I can't fault a man for championing his own people. But at the same time, it's like
that's
the Academy
watching the Oscars,
right? Yeah, exactly. It's like the Academy just wants to pick causes, you know, and like who won Best Actress was like Julianne Moore because she did a portrayal of Alzheimer's or something.
Okay,
you know?
I didn't even know.
About,
I looked it up and I hadn't even heard of that movie, whatever that was.
Nor had I. Half these movies I'd never even heard of was the thing that was funny. And but that's also the reason it's interesting to watch the Oscars is because you find out about movies. Like one of them in particular, somebody apparently had done, and this was a surprising win. The best documentary winner was a Snowden documentary.
Yeah, I saw that.
I didn't know that they had made one.
I've heard of that movie
called like Citizen 4 or something like that.
Right.
So I'm not curious to see it now, actually, because yeah. But yeah, that's what I was thinking of when I was watching this. And they were talking to one of the people on the red carpet, you know, when we first turned it on or something. Right. I can't remember who it was. But,
Actor McDacterson.
No, yeah, somebody that was just like, you know, the person 50 Shades of Grey or something. Somebody, you know, I'm like, why is this person popular? All the like, or it was making me think of, at the Super Bowl, they got that super flamboyant skater guy to do the pre-coverage with some woman.
Oh, yeah, I forget his name, but I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Or the inline skater, whatever his name was.
Yeah, he was like a figure skater for the Olympics or something, right? Like
I don't think he was either figure skater
no, he was like
or
a dance,
he was a speed skater or something.
Was he? Yeah, something. Anyway, super flamboyant and all his dress.
I can't remember his name.
And it's like, why did you want to put this guy in front of the Super Bowl? Just because he had really popular results, him and his dance partner, on some other like red carpet. No, like he did red carpet coverage for like the Tonys or something.
And they were like, it was a totally different crowd.
We'll get more women and gays or something to watch the Super Bowl if we put them in front of it. It's like, I don't know that that's going to be enough to get these people to do...
Right, if they're not interested in football, they're not going to tune in just to watch
it.
And if they do, then they'll
tune out right afterwards. More people than ever of all genders have been watching the Super Bowl these years anyway. Why are they so desperate to cram in a new demographic that doesn't care?
Right, that doesn't really care.
If they care, they're going to care and watch, not because you pandered to them, but because they want to watch the Super Bowl.
And they're not even pandering them with like the game itself.
Right, you know exactly.
They're coming to this movie theater because we've got this delicious popcorn. If they're not interested in watching the movie, who cares if they're in the movie?
Why not start a popcorn bar then?
Exactly,
you know,
right. Start something that they're interested in.
But that also made me think of like that's one of the curses of our times is like the curse of popular culture because everything's based on mass appeal.
Right.
Not the stuff that's best wins. The stuff that pricks the most people at least slightly with attention. Like if 1 million people think, and give a half a second eyeball on this thing, it'll make $1 million, even if it's utter shit. Just because it's so... That's why so much scandal and outrage is the thing, because scandal and outrage will get everybody to look at it for half a second.
Right.
You know, like Molly Cyrus's ridiculous...
You don't really get a whole lot more money if it's like people are way into it versus sort of into it. So it's better to have like everyone sort of into it.
It's better to have 1 million people be outraged for 3 seconds than to have 1,000 people or 500,000 people even be absolutely in love with the quality of this thing.
Right.
You know, and so... That's why, like, Lady Gaga, like, even... I don't like Lady Gaga, but she went on the Oscars and did some tribute to Sound of Music. beautiful voice. She's actually a very talented singer. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that she's got to do meat suits to get money. You know, exactly. like there was also, going back to movies here, there was some movie, Inside Llewyn Davis or something.
Yeah,
some
that
movie
was actually
based on a true story.
Wasn't that the Coen brothers?
It might have been. I don't know. I watched it because this girl recommended it, and she and I watched it. You know, kind of thing. And it was probably not something that would have come across my desk, so to speak. But it was an interesting take on like the whole premise of it was, instead of like most biopics where they do a story about a guy who makes it in the business.
Yeah, he doesn't.
It's all 1 week in his life of him getting no gigs and like not being able to like basically just like the hard knock life of a poor artist. And what was funny is probably the most important scene in the movie was that at one point he does this really weird road trip where he gets in a car.
Interrupt you, but it is a Coen.
Okay, he did a really weird road trip where he's inside the car with this other performer and this guy who drives him, because this guy's kind of crippled, and like so he does this really weird road trip for several days from New York to Chicago, and it's all trippy, and he ends up, they get pulled over and arrested, so he gets out of the car and walks the rest of the way, or like gets a bus, and he's basically trying to see this producer in Chicago, and he gets in front of him, and the guy gives him a shot, and he plays this kind of like, because he's supposed to be like a folk singer during the folk revival of the 60s, or not supposed to be, it's based on a true story. And so he gets there, he sings his song, and the guy like quietly listens to him the whole time, and you can tell there's a look on his face like, yeah, this is good.
Actually good music.
This is good. I'm surprised.
Right.
But he says, the only thing he actually says is, I don't see any money in this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he goes home,
good,
you know, like he's like, this is good. I don't see any money in this.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it's like, and that's what it is, you know, like
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Right, but I guess the downside, it's all trade-offs, because the other way that it used to be done was patrons.
Right.
The problem with that is if there was no patrons that liked what you did, you were screwed. Now, if there's no millions of people who like what you did, you're screwed. So either you got to appeal to the mindless, tasteless mob, or you got to appeal to the specifically tasteless.
I mean, that's what they think. The thing is, with so many people with the internet, you only need a small slice of the pie to get.
That's the benefit of the modern age.
They're looking
now
at
you can find your niche,
right? But they don't look at it that way. Right. They want a big piece of the pie,
right?
So they don't care what they have to do to get it,
right? Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
right, that is the difference now. But yeah, like I was just saying, that's kind of the curse of popular culture, and that's why people wonder where it's going. It just leads to one aspect of what a lot of people don't see. Yeah. That I see sometimes, people go, why is it like that way? Like, people should do something. It's like, well, the problem is not all of this is because people need to do something. Some of it is because it's based on the preferences of the crowd, and the crowd is a bunch of not quality people. You know what I mean?
People have like a selection bias based on the fact that the people that they hang around with day in and day out don't do X or whatever. They assume that no one does. And like, there's huge swaths of the country that are like into some Honey Boo Boo or whatever. So
exactly. Like, you know, and I get it. Honey Boo Boo is hilarious, but it makes these people are making money for being
hilarious. I've never
that's true. I've never watched it, but I mean, I understand the desire to watch a train wreck sometimes,
right?
But at the same time, I usually watch it in a fictional sense, like a movie about a day that goes bad.
Actual like wrecks,
fucking
up and like
epic fail videos, right? Yeah, exactly.
Smashing their
not
grills.
People being so crass and crude that we give them millions of dollars for it,
right?
Like the Kardashians or something. Life's of the rich and debaucherous, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I guess that wraps it up for this week.
Yeah, we went all philosophical, no humor this week.
Right,
so
yeah.
A little bit of something.
Even philosophy's humorous, though, because life is strange.
All right. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you next week.
Adios.